Welcome to a special edition of Toonami Pre-Flight, or really, this is going to be the new normal, but we're starting off with two very close friends of the show. So last week we were able to interview Steve Bloom, the voice of Tom, and this week we are interviewing Dana Swanson, the voice of SARA. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your Kitchen is on Fire potential Hobbit hole talk show. I myself am in Peyto Lake on the Canadian Rockies Icefields Parkway. So if you just want to relax in a glacier lake with me, you're welcome to.
That's awesome.
That seems very relaxing. More relaxing than Jason's for sure.
Yeah, I feel Jason's very fiery. I think that's appropriate for him.
I just feel like I have a personal connection to the This Is Fine comic since I reached out to the artist and did the animated version. And so for me, not only does it also sum up the world right now, us all sitting trying to be like, it's all fine.
Yeah.
It also is a personal thing. So yeah, but it does, like, on regular, like, businessy Zoom meetings, it definitely, a lot of people are like, whoa, geez, like, you know.
Yeah, and you're like, don't worry, I'll duck down low enough if the smoke is too bad. I'm not going to I won't have smoke inhalation. Don't worry. Let's put a pause on your emotions on my background.
It's either that or Miyazaki backgrounds, and Gil's already got all those, so I gotta.
Oh, I realized that we are celebrating three different elements. I've decided to go with water, Jason, fiery, Gill, very earthy Gill.
Yes, I just wanted to come around and make the triangle, the Zelda triangle of power.
Ooh.
So Dana, you I think what we should do is we should talk about how you started doing the voice of SARA.
Great.
So let's start with you started working at Adult Swim. What year did you start?
I started working at Adult Swim in 2005, and to anybody who has ever really wanted a job and not gotten it, I interviewed for a year.
Holy crap.
I interviewed for 4 different jobs and finally got a PA position as a librarian, which settled me near the sound booth just by happenstance. So due to that, I was doing a lot of audio testing when the building was restructured, and was able to kind of like goof around on the mic and make people laugh and realize, like, oh, this is something I do. And then after a while, your name sort of gets tossed into a hat of, oh, this is a person who does scratch. Let's have her do something. Right. Additionally, I was also recording some different musical projects and had a lot of comedy involved in those. And both Jason and Gill were aware of those. So fast forward to 2013, and I got a call that I needed to go into the sound booth, and I thought it was just for scratch. And I didn't know what the copy was. I just knew it was for Toonami, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I bet they're just going to wait until they get the person to do this. and I read the copy, and I read it very robotic, because I was like, oh, it's an AI, a robot. And then, because that's like the initial, like, is this what you want? Which I feel like that's a lot of voice acting, is like, is this what you want? I'm going to guess what you want. Right. And so I think both you and Gil were out of town, and I got another call that was like, no, go back in the booth and read it like this. And I was like, why are they having me reread Scratch? and I read it. I read it more as myself, and like we sort of found this voice that was like very breathy and like and kind of like similar to another voice that I had been doing, and I remember doing it a couple times and then hearing like, great, you're going to be on air on Saturday. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So we the character of SARA, you are the third person to voice that character. The first person was Cowboy Sally from the Mekons, who had never done voice work before and was very shy. And Gil, correct me if I'm wrong, but she was always really hard to get on the phone. Like, I think she did it as a lark and did not expect, like, oh, they're going to be calling me for years, and just was didn't feel good about being an actor and was just like weirded out by it.
It was through Sean Akins and Barry
Yeah.
Mills. And so it was like, oh yeah, I'll do this thing. And then it was like, wait, how much, how often, what's the deal?
So then we upgraded Sarah and we got a new voice actor who no one can remember her name. We never met her in person. She did it for a couple of years. She was terrific, but none of us can remember her name at all. Like nobody involved in the production. So anyway,
we didn't keep great records back then.
Yeah. So when we were bringing back Toonami, and we knew we wanted to not just have it be Tom in a room, and we needed him to play off of someone, we thought it was actually Gill that said, "Why don't we just ask Dana?" Because we knew that you were an actor, we knew that you had done voices on Squidbillies and had done stuff for Aqua Teen, and so we thought, you know, it'll probably be a lot easier to work with somebody who's right next door, so we can just, like, we don't have to worry about them deciding not to be available for phone calls. That was like the main reason. And then
Dana, how many Adult Swim shows do you think you've done a voice for where you found out this is going to be on air on Saturday? Is that sort of the...
Sometimes they don't tell me. Like sometimes because I got used to waiting for it to air and then going like, oh, that's Maria Bamford. That's not me. Like I sort of would. So I don't know how many that I have actually wound up in. And I think there's some stuff I've actually done uncredited because they were just like, oh, whoops, we left you in there. And so I don't, I should tally that. I should be my own manager and tally that. I would say I've done probably somewhere in the 10 to 20 range of shows for linear.
Yeah.
And then streaming is so much streaming. I've done so much streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those people who don't know, Adult Swim, at least in that era, we had a lot of productions that were Atlanta-based, and a lot of them were actually edited and created at William Street. So a lot of times when they needed a voice, they would just grab people. And then it was interesting, there was kind of a house players where it was like, there was like 5 or 6 people that were in a lot of different like Dennis Maloney's another one, and he's in a lot of them. But it was always super not organized. So once you started playing Sarah, and were able to actually do a couple on it, immersion events, and like actually be a character and not just do like game reviews, not that there's anything wrong with that. Tell us about what you think it's been like in terms of just embodying a character that people already knew about for a block like Toonami, and having to play against Steve, the total asshole that he is.
Steve is an evolved angel. Like, I don't know what else to refer to him as. He's an evolved angel. I feel like he is on a whole other level. As far as, so this like breaks down into several parts because starting off, it was a lot of like, even though it was packaging, like even some of the opens, when we were doing a lot more opens, were very like dramatic or had to have like some comedic timing to it. And so like, that was fun because it wasn't just like, I'm reading, here I am telling you to go to Toonami. Like it was, there's always a bit more humor injected into it and personality. And I always enjoyed that. And then doing the total immersion events of like, oh, I get to act now, and there's stakes. And I was typically doing a lot of unsupervised sessions with Brent. And so it was interesting to be like, oh, Jason and Gill are back. Here they are. Giving me direction on what they want, which is like, when you are an actor, you're kind of mind reading a lot. So you're going like, I think this is what they want. I bet this is what they want. And then it's always great to have somebody there to be like, no, this is what I want. And you go, okay, cool. And beyond that, you want to go, oh, this is what I think they want, but maybe, just maybe, here's something they didn't know they wanted.
Yeah.
So that's a risk you take when you don't have a director there, but you do have the opportunity to be like, hey, I know that's how you want it. I'm going to give you as much as you want of that. Would you let me try one this way? And
well, you know, that's funny because we asked a similar question to Steve about what it's like to, as a working actor who's been doing this for so long, like to come to him for a certain thing. And he basically said, it's exactly the same now as it was then. Like, he described exactly what you described. He was like, you just never know what they want. You just go in there blind and you're just trying 90 different voices until you get one that they like. Or occasionally they'll be like, we want this. And you're like, thank you. You know, but I guess it doesn't change much the longer you do it. So
it doesn't. The references change. And so it is a lot of like keeping up with somebody else's reference. And it may be that somebody's like reference set is from 20, 30 years ago. And so you're like, well, I got to get really good at these references, but then you also have to be really great at stuff that's happening in 2020, which like I've had some people will do like drag queen references. And so you have to be up on that and be like, oh, okay. That's kind of, you want me to do that? Okay. Or they'll like cite somebody from TikTok. And so then you have to like learn how to do that. So, but back to, I'm like, we've gone on we've gone on this great tangent. But as far as embodying the role of Sarah, I'm very grateful for it. The fan reaction is, it's very loving and it's very kind, and it always feels it feels like a big hug, and it feels welcoming. And the funniest thing is when someone will say like, hey, I've been watching you since 2000, or I've been watching you since this year. And I'll be like, well, you're watching somebody, but it wasn't me. Or just like the fact that I am a small part of this bigger,
thing,
I always call it a hang. Like it's a hang, it's a vibe, it's a bigger vibe.
Yeah.
It's a place. Like I consider Toonami a place, which is why people keep coming back to it.
Yeah.
Because it's just a cool place to hang and feel accepted and welcomed. And I feel like the fan response is you are accepted, you are welcomed, you belong. This is a place where everybody belongs, especially if you feel like you don't belong anywhere else. It's like, well, come on into Toonami. Like this place, let's go. You're welcome here. Come on.
Do you, when you went to your first con as the voice of Sarah, like, did you at that point, that to me, the cons are, and I'll explain why, but to me, cons are where you really meet fans on the ground, and it's just such a more sincere, personal reaction that it really brings home whether or not your work matters to them, you know, or in what way, or how much they like about you. And I noticed that when we're at cons and we're signing, your signing line is always pretty long. So are you seeing people come up to you with that same kind of stuff that they say to us? Like,
yeah, I think it really, I think it depends, because sometimes it is that thing of thank you so much for welcoming me, and like having Toonami and having this be a place to be. So I think sometimes it is a thank you for Toonami, which I try to do my best to represent Toonami in those moments and be like, you know, I do what I can.
Well, you're doing your part.
Yeah, you do it well.
Yeah, thank y'all. Technically, the first convention I went to after getting Sarah was Comic-Con 2013. I wasn't there in any official Sarah capacity. I was just sort of like on the grounds, like helping Dennis get footage for all of the like promos and sponsor stuff that we were doing. And I remember I met Steve though. Like I was like, oh, I hear Steve's here. I should go say hi. And I said hi in line to Steve, like when there was a kid dressed as Tom. And so that was pretty amazing. Was like, hey, no, I just played Sarah. I'm just saying hi to Steve because I really like him.
And then you and Steve have had a couple years of being like, when we would do our live Comic-Con stuff and you both dressed up as your characters, you've been through the ringer of how hard it is to recreate those characters in real life. But both of you guys were like the soldiers in the foxhole together.
Yeah, physically wearing those costumes and walking in them without them destroying you and themselves.
Yes.
It's a murder-suicide pact of cosplay.
Yes. And I think both Steve and I had, some of our issues were similar and then some were different. Like there was a year that we both had these speed suits. And so we got to like pose for each other in like these cool black speed suits. And that was, we felt very like united on that front. There typically are like pieces of lighting that, you know, may or may not work. And so you're like, is this going to electrocute me? There have been some years where the worry is like, because Steve always has a huge helmet involved and whatever, even the year that as a gag, he did like a cardboard box, like he always has something that he has to carry on his neck.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I felt like I haven't had to share that same pain. But I have had like pieces of my face fall off, or like, am I going to stab somebody with wings? I can't see where I'm going. We do share that. And we also share just needing a handler in general.
You both needed somebody to like help you walk from the hotel to the stage.
Mm-hmm.
But so okay, let's fast forward. So you've been doing SARA now for several years.
Mm-hmm.
How many years is it exactly, Gil? Is it
It's been 7.
7.
Yeah, it would have been a year after the.
So I think that might make you automatically the person who's done SARA the longest.
Yes.
So, you know.
Yes.
So you might as well just take credit for Cowboy Sally's work and just say you're in the Mekons too.
Be like, yes, I was in college and they had me come over and do VO.
And then you were just experimenting with a British accent because we can't remember that artist's name anyway. So everything, it's just you all along.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should just be you all along.
I like this code that we're using of yeah, because you had the Queen. It's always really hard to claim that, and I do understand.
Yeah, we're not supposed to hold a job, so it gets a little awkward.
Yeah, which kudos to you for getting that pull.
Well, so now you have, for the viewers in the audience, you left Adult Swim and moved on to greener pastures. So now you're on the other side of the country, and you are making your way as a professional. Not that you weren't a professional before, but a voice actor.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple questions related to that. 1, how's it going? 2, what's changed about it in COVID versus before you were in COVID?
Ooh, so 1, how's it going? And 2, COVID versus not COVID. So let's go to 1. I've been a professional voice actor to where that is like my main thing that I do for a year. Even though I've done it since 2006 was like when I started doing it at William Street. But as far as like auditioning a lot and having an agent and being in that world, has only really been a year of, I think I'll put it that way. I've had an agent for a year, or a little over a year, if that makes sense, of like, okay, supposed to go out for things. It's highly competitive. Yeah. And you get used to sending emails out into the ether and just going like, well, here's me. What do you think? I guess. And you start to learn your strengths and weaknesses as you go. So it's a lot of training as far as like, this is the thing I don't do really well. This keeps coming up and I want to get better at it. Yeah. And it's also a lot of relationship building, because the hope is you perform well enough and people start seeing your name over and over and over again. And then they're like, oh, wait, I've seen your name. I like you. Okay. The biggest difference for me is when I was in Atlanta, a lot of my client base were William Street shows or people I knew from a place where I was improvising a lot, Dad's Garage. Like I wound up doing a Kesha impression for something because of that. Like I got called in to do something for the Braves, for the Atlanta Braves. So like, can you just be Kesha for a minute? And I'm like, I can do that. Sure. That works for me. Or like I would get calls from friends who just needed a voice on something. And that's been different. Like, cause out here, everybody already has somebody that they're like super close with or people they typically tap. And so it is like rebuilding that's from the ground up of like, oh, I used to have people that would just ask me to do stuff because I sat nearby and they liked what I did. And so when you don't sit nearby anymore, you have to figure.
You had a network of people and you had And so how often are you doing a lot of auditions, and are you having to come up, like, how much of it is doing accents that you don't know? Like, have you had to like I better learn how to do a British accent, or?
Yeah, it really ranges. I'd say like accent wise, there's some that I'm like, oh, I've been to that country and I don't know the exact way to do that. But you start to like pick it up. So I would say like I probably get like 1 or 2 a week where I'm like, okay, better learn how to make my mouth look like it's from Luxembourg. Which is, that's how I learn. Like everybody learns accents differently, which is something I've picked up, is like when you're learning like an accent or a dialect, like some people do it really well, listening back to a clip of a native speaker a couple times and then going like, oh, okay. I do well if I can watch a person's mouth.
Huh.
And I see what they're doing and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the secret. My favorite trick is from a friend who just likes doing accents. She's not a professional actor, but she just enjoys them. And she's like, oh, you want to say Jennifer Lopez in Kiwi? You want to learn how to do a Kiwi accent? It's Jennifer Lopez. So like, it's like it's
crazy.
Everyone has like their weird tricks because it isn't a standardized, it's not a standardized way to learn it. It's kind of like some people learn music and then they're able to play it by ear. And then some people are like, I need to do a diagram. I got to see what your mouth is doing. Can you use the word in a sentence? And so dialects don't come necessarily naturally to me unless it's one I've heard over and over and over. And then it's like, I slip into it. I was getting booked for a lot of ones that are like, can you just sound like a person from Game of Thrones?
And you're like, pan-European.
Yeah.
You know, what do they call that? They call that
I like pan-European.
Middle Atlantic. That's what they call it. Middle Atlantic.
Yeah.
That's what they call Madonna's accent, a Mid-Atlantic. It's like a mishmash of American and Britain.
Yeah, I was just basically doing Cersei Lannister for several auditions because I was like, I think you just want Cersei Lannister because that's like, so then it also goes back to mind reading of like, you probably just want Cersei Lannister. If you're putting it this way, you probably just want this.
And on your, so now it's been 3 or 4 months that you've been, 4 months probably that you've been stuck in quarantine.
Yes.
So is it exclusively now? Like, even if you get a job, do they try to record you from home? Like, how is it working for you? Yeah.
Yeah. Most places are recording from home. If they're not, typically there are people to check with to be like, are they supposed to be recording outside of this? Just depending on the different regulations that are state by state or city by city or what they're doing. So there's even that to look out for of, okay, this place says that I need to go in and record, but I don't feel comfortable doing that. I have an on-camera thing that came up that was like, we can call you and tell you what we're doing during COVID. And I'm just like, I don't know. Can we just Zoom?
They wanted you to physically go there and be with them.
Yeah. And the cases, LA keeps having record-breaking COVID cases. So I'm just like, I don't, what this, and they're like, it's going to be a classroom setting. And I'm like, already that sounds like more than 20 people. Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to do that. But it's caused me to upgrade my system and like upgrade my understanding of things that I already owned and how to do those things faster and better. Yeah. It's hard because I do love recording with an engineer. That way, when you're engineering yourself, sometimes you have to like, you may be recording at your mic and then run. I have like this curtain that I use and I have to like run behind the curtain and be like, wait, did that pop? I got to reread that. Okay. So that's, it's a little bit more difficult with your performance.
And when you send takes, are you editing out your bad takes or are you just kind of sending them the file?
With you guys, it depends on the client. Like I think with you guys, I always leave in stuff that could make somebody laugh because there's always somebody on the other end. If that's Delgado, if that's Jillian, like somebody or Brent or whoever, Dennis, whoever's editing it. Sometimes I will leave in stuff that's just bonkers because I'm like, I just want to brighten your day a little bit. It has let me take out things that maybe I'm like, oh, that was a bad take because I was trying to find the thing, or maybe I didn't know how to accurately work the sentence. And so it does feel like, oh, I can give somebody an already listened to cut rather than like, and with auditions, you always give the like, all right, this is the best take. This is the best everything. This is the best. We put all of our energy into this one thing. And so it's not like I'm not sending people my 10 minutes of me going like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on here? just really want to get in the head of this character that wants to talk about a computer.
And when you audition and you get the audition,
Mm-hmm.
do you find that they want you to do the voice you did on the audition? Like that's why they picked you? Or do they sometimes you audition and then they want you to do something totally different than your audition? Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. It's been kind of mostly column A of like, just do the thing you did. We like that thing. And then every once in a while you can play around it. I think it depends on your, it depends on what you're booking. Like if it's a video game, typically with video game and commercial stuff, it's kind of like, oh, we wanted that thing that we heard. Can we just have that thing we heard? And then with animation, it's all over the place because you could be like, hey, I have a pitch. And so typically when I pitch something, it's for things that are animated or for people that I've already worked with before that know me and that know that I will offer something that's just really silly or really fun or can inject new energy into it. Because I improvised for so long that I'm like, I just want to give you something that's like, maybe you didn't know that this thing could be fun. There was an animated project I did that it was political. And so I don't think it's going to air because it was done right before COVID. And it was just like our entire landscape is so different now. I don't think this thing is ever going to air, but it was at least fun to do a Tommy Lahren voice for a while. And Tommy Lahren. And I was doing, I started to develop an Elizabeth Warren impression that sounded like it was a combination between Jerry Clower and a very nervous Finnish wedding officiant that I met once. And I'm like, oh, that's those two people, because a lot of voice actors talk about voice prints. And so I was like, oh, those are those two voice prints just talking to each other and making Elizabeth Warren. So
could you
everybody
give us a little Elizabeth Warren?
I make her sound more nervous than she actually is. But in interviews that I've done with her, that I've watched with her, she's very nervous.
Yeah.
Like she has this like nervous energy to her. And even though she can fight through it, she kind of holds things back. Like she's the type that, she'll have her fists right here because she's got to hold it back, but she'll tell you what. So
very good.
Yeah, that's a very exact. So that's like maybe where you're doing something, but it's a little bit more exaggerated.
And are you so assuming that COVID doesn't destroy our whole business, you find yourself doing more and more voice work. What would be your, I mean, I think I can guess, but do you have like a dream type of role that you would love to do? I mean, are you definitely still, I know you've always been a person very tied to comedy and comedy performance. So I know that's a space you feel comfortable in, but are you hoping to find like a full-time comedy role, or would you like a drama, or like, what would be your ideal role if you had one?
Wow. I actually gravitate towards comedy. I want to be an animal. I just want to be an animal of some sort. Because I think that there's just the possibility to make weird noises, and like creature noises is a whole thing. Like there are people that just do creature noises and monsters, which like Steve, as you know, is like very great at that stuff. So I don't know. I think I want to be a comedy animal. I want to be a comedy animal.
You want to be on the show Animals.
I want to be on the show Animals. I actually have been also like, I spent a lot of time kind of getting my voice work up and running and upgrading my own stuff and all that this year. But it's also given me some time to kind of like, that's where I needed to be. And then I'm still sort of like working on my series writing, and I somehow accidentally got back into producing, which is like fun. Yeah. I love it. But it is also like, these are all things that are part of my wheelhouse. And I don't want to, I think it's that Adult Swim thing of like, you do 10 jobs and there's a couple that you're sort of like known for, but I can't drop that. I can't drop that learning of like, I got to do 10 jobs. So I can't just do voice acting. Come on, guys.
Have you been able to come back to Atlanta during coronavirus, or have you been
No.
no, you've been on the West Coast the whole time? Yeah.
No, I've been on the West Coast the entire time. I've been extremely safe. I have to be, like, I am in that fun immunocompromised category, which at first I was doing am I immunocompromised? What does this count as? And then having to talk to doctors and be like, okay, I shouldn't, so I shouldn't go outside. Should I go outside? What do I do here? So the idea of flying on a plane right now sounds
terrifying.
Horrifying. Yeah, I know that
not doing it.
Some people, do not fly. What have you guys? Who's traveled? Gil, have you traveled much, or what's your risk?
Driving wise, we may be flying in the not so distant future. We're just sort of seeing how things are looking. But so far it's been fully in the house, or like drive to a beach and stay in a place with no one else and just go to the beach and come back. That's been about the extent of.
Yeah, I haven't gone anywhere. I'll be doing shortly what Gil just described, driving somewhere, going to a beach and staying in the house and then driving back. I will not be flying for any reason. I think that's fucking insane. But so let's take it all the way back. So we're kind of caught up on what you're doing now. So let's go all the way back to when you started performing. This might even be before Adult Swim. What did you hope to do when you grew up? Did you want to be an actor? Did you want to be a comedian? Did you want to be a writer? Did you want to be all three? Did you want to be a fireman, firewoman, fireperson?
Wow. Did I want to be? I think the first time I vocalized a job that I wanted to have, I wanted to be a cat. So that goes back to being an animal.
Good job. My cat loves it.
Yeah.
That was my first
professional cat. Is a good gig. That's a good gig to get.
Yeah, because you just get to rest, and I just always imagined like this white cat with like a lot of fruit on its head was like, it's like that was the first job I wanted, was white cat with fruit on head.
Carmen Miranda cat was what.
Carmen Miranda cat. That I just wanted that so badly, and I don't know why. So as I got older, I realized that I wanted to go into comedy, and it was a lot of like watching SNL reruns, and I think the Ben Stiller show was on, and I like really loved the Ben Stiller show, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. How do I do that? Where I'm writing stuff and in this stuff. So that's all. I think that's also part of the like I want to do all of it. Like I want to talk it, but I also want to write the things. And I think that's where it started. Reruns, baby.
And where reruns. And are you feeling like you're getting some of that acting stuff out when you're doing voice acting, or is it so different from being on stage? I know you've spent a lot of time as a person on stage getting energy directly from people. And I know that voice acting is so different, especially remotely. Is it as satisfying? Is it satisfying in a different way? Is it not as satisfying?
It's satisfying in a different way because you do have the opportunity to edit yourself, and you have the opportunity to be like, that take, I don't know about. So you do you have the chance to get it right in a way that you don't with live performance. And that's actually sometimes the thrill of live performance is this could go horribly wrong, but it didn't. So as far as doing live performance here, I haven't really been improvising as much. Like I've done a little bit of stuff here and there, and I started to actually develop a thing called karaoke therapy. I was doing a lot of karaoke. I love karaoke. I love karaoke in a room with a lot of people. So not necessarily like K-Town or like small room karaoke. That's fun, but I like being able to connect with strangers through karaoke. And that was something I'm like, I didn't fully know how to put words to that until I was here. And it was stuff where I would like try to unite a room in song. And so I got really into that right before COVID happened. And I was like, man, this is working. Like I'd started to work it into almost a stand-up routine that I was taking around. And then COVID happened. And so now I'm trying to figure out how do I make this something that is portable to an online audience that isn't just me singing in my bedroom. And maybe it is. I don't know. Look, I have a microphone.
I'm gonna say that's the only place any of us are singing right now. So
yeah. But I do, like, I love the energy of a room. I love surprising people. I love playing in a space. I love, there's one bit I do where I do laps there's a song that I do laps during, like it's Radiohead Creep. And the part when Tom York sings Run, if you can sing Run and also run, guess what? People like that.
They like that. Yeah.
People really like it.
But if you're doing it at home, are you doing it in a circle? Are you in and out of the camera? Like, how's it?
I have a clip I need to cut down. I was just doing it. I was doing this, which I thought wouldn't be too much of a workout, but turns out it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we know, as far as your side interests, you are very into various video games, at least starting them, playing them extensively, spending a lot of time deciding how you're going to play it, what way you're going to play it, and then spending so much time thinking about playing it that you find out you're just going to have to play something else. So are you still doing that with games? And if so, what are you playing?
I started playing Death Stranding, and then I thought too hard about it. Like, I absolutely loved it. I realized also it's like a game that I have to have another person watching it with me, or else I totally, it's so scary that I'm like, oh, this is how I approach horror, is I have to have another person, which is very hard during COVID unless you're doing like a PS4 or like watch or anything like that. Like, if I don't have another person enjoying it with me, then I'm like, this is too scary. And so I had to stop Death Stranding because it was too scary on my own.
Falling over with all the packages just terrified you too much?
Just delivering. Have you played
packages?
it? My Amazon deliveries.
Gill stopped playing it because of the packages.
I actually love the packages. I love the weight. I love the packages. I love trying to figure out what I'm supposed to carry. I actually really love leaving stuff behind and being like, you're not worth it. Because it makes me feel like, oh, this is how people unlearn hoarding. Like, I think that it has some, I think it has some potential psychological benefits.
I think I'm too much of a hoarder. I was like, well, if I'm the world's greatest package deliverer, why can't I walk over this mountain without falling down carrying 6 things?
Because it's a red area. Because it's red. You can't walk up the reds.
I came back to it a couple of different times, and I just finally decided ultimately it wasn't for me. But I really like the idea of it. But if the rain sucks, give me some caves to get out of the rain. Or give me an AccuWeather forecast of when it's going to rain and let me not go to work that day.
Yeah, the acid rain is just a real pisser. I don't know a better word for that, but it's just a real pisser because you don't know when you're gonna get stuck. Yeah, you're right. You don't know when you're gonna get stuck in a downpour, and it's just like, oh, all your packages got ruined. We have this spray.
Yeah.
If you want to undo that, but
we have ladders you can climb over a mountain, but we don't have a fucking umbrella you can tie to your backpack. Or poncho.
So much like with your Death Stranding thing of like, I should be able to carry all these packages. I've played Animal Crossing many times, like throughout the years. I think all of us in this Zoom room have played Animal Crossing across iterations. And I have the same thing of where I start it and I get really into it. And then I'm just like, I'm not even checking my mail at home. So
yeah, I think for Animal Crossing, what's fascinating is that the normal Dana journey in a game, well, I view it as normal. It might not be your view as your normal journey, but as an outsider, where you get super into it and you're doing it every day and you're plotting out the best strategies, and then you just slowly find yourself like not giving a shit, and then you move on and everything's just the way it was. Everyone is having that same journey with Animal Crossing because we all dove into it super hard during COVID and everybody was talking about it, sharing codes and all that. And now it's like, I did it every day with my family and we all had characters. And now I'm at the point where I'm like twice a week, I'm like, I better check in, and my characters are all going to yell at me because I wasn't there. And
my favorite character left. Like she was like, this is what you get. And she left. And I was like, Fuchsia, no. So I mean, has anybody left you? Because that's a horrifying feeling.
I just don't leave them. I mean, I don't let them because they go, I'm thinking about leaving. What do you think? And I'm like, I think fuck off. You're staying here forever. And they're like, oh, okay, cool.
I decided I was going to.
My daughter doesn't want me to let anyone leave, so I don't have a choice, basically. We share an island.
I decided I was just going to let it happen, and I would invite all the first people that I met to come live there, and then whoever wanted to leave, I would leave. And then Julian, the horse, wanted to leave, and he had all the great, like, astrological furniture, and I was like, Julian, you can't leave. But then he was also kind of a pain in the ass because he kept asking me, like, should I change my brand? And I'm like, fuck you talking about your personal brand. Get out of here.
I found out something that my daughter knew, and she got super mad at me. This happened, by the way, all the time, was what happens when you share an island. But somebody asked me, can you come up with a new nickname for me? Like, can you come up with a new thing I should say? And I was like, yeah, sure. And I wrote a phrase. But when you do that, eventually all the characters on your island, it like infects them. So they all say that phrase at some point. So now when Bella found out, when my daughter found out, she was like, Dad, now every character is going to say that. It's ruined. Like, and it's slowly happening, and there's no way to change it and make it not happen. It's crazy. But anyway, so gaming wise, you're still sort of just catch as catch can.
Yeah, I actually took a little bit of a break because I had I did something where I'd been doing Zoom workouts, and I had injured my arm, which has happened to me in 2013, where I was like walking. It was like during your wedding. I think I had like wrist guards on, but I had inflamed that again. So I've actually taken a big break from gaming, which is not fun. And I'm nervous to go back to it because I'm like, oh, I need those for writing. I need my arms for writing.
I get carpal tunnel from it for sure.
Yeah, I have been playing Dr. Mario World, which is a hybrid between Dr. Mario and Super Mario World, and it's a freemium game. So then, like, I typically shy away from those, and I don't like to recommend those to people because of the like addictive quality to them, and I get sucked into that addictive quality. But it does make me feel like I'm fighting the viruses. It makes me feel like I'm in charge of what happens in COVID. And if I just keep playing as Dr. Peach. Yeah, it's just an app. It's just a mobile app. Cool. Mobile app. And it's one of those like Candy Crush style, like you get 5 lives and then you have to wait 30 minutes for a new life to populate. Or you could throw some money
those lives.
Or spend
buy those lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I love Nintendo. I'm a big Nintendo stan, but I just typically I don't like to go like, you should play this game, because I never know if I'm triggering somebody's like addiction tendencies. And so I'm like, it's cool. So it's a game I'm playing.
So as far as like your COVID hobbies, what are you doing in your downtime? Like if you're not doing auditions or writing or doing work related stuff, what is your thing to relax?
I've really gotten into online screenings somehow. Like that's become a big part of my COVID, especially the last couple months.
Like movie screenings, or
movie screenings, like watching movies with people. Sometimes people will be like, "Oh, this is my Saturday night screening, and I'm going to put on something super weird at midnight." And so then you know to go by at midnight because something weird's going to be on. It's sort of this weird gray area because it's like, well, you don't want anybody to get busted for sharing their screen with a bunch of strangers, but there is, and so like you may see things that say like private screening, and you're like, okay, private, but for all of us. My favorite is personally, and Jason, I know I've talked to you about this, is they're called Racer Trash, the Racer Trash screenings that happen, which are the people that they recut stuff like Speed Racer and Heat and they make it into like one giant music video, but there's always jokes, and it's super funny. It just always feels like I'm about to go on a ride. Yeah. I miss theme parks. I'm about to go on a ride. Here's the ride. And so that's something I've really treasured during this time.
There's no hobby. You're not learning how to whittle or anything like that. You're not.
I got into making ice cream for a bit. And so I was making ice cream with like coconut milk. And very into activism, which I don't consider that a hobby. I consider that a duty. So I'm like, that's a lot of that energy that was put, like, I'd say, like March, April, May, like early May, there was a lot more emphasis on like, well, it's COVID. What do I do? And then now that's been like, I'm one of those people that's like, I'm on my phone all the time. I'm figuring out what needs to be done. What can I sign? Where can I donate? What's going on? Like that is a lot of that sort of brain space has been occupied by how can I help?
Yeah, we all came out of learning how to make bread to trying to remember that the world is all broken.
Yes. That's a great way to put it.
Gil, did you have a question? It looked like you were going to say something.
I had an itch on my face.
Oh, boring.
Should we all itch our face in solidarity?
So, I think over 7 years, I think it's fair to ask, do you have, and it's okay if you don't, do you have a favorite Toonami moment or thing you were involved with over the period that you voiced Sarah?
I have a couple, and I often say that one of my favorite total immersion events is the one where I think it's an Intruder 2. I always want to say original Intruder, but like, no, it's Intruder 2 is the first one I did. Because first of all, it was the first TIE I got to do, but it was also where Sarah wakes up different. And that has like a very personal connection to that from having brain surgery and being like, oh, like you do become a different person when you wake up from something that intense. Yeah. And it's not to say that somebody is better or worse. Sarah, for example, had a glitch. And so that was like how I felt. Like I was like, oh, this is how I feel. I feel like I have a glitch. Like I feel like it's not that it's wrong. It's just that it is like, oh, it's different. Like I've woken up different. Yeah. So I have a very personal connection to that. I also really loved, I'm trying to think if it's Intruder 3 or Countdown, where Sarah, evil Sarah emerges.
Countdown.
Yeah, that's Countdown. I almost want to be like, can you cut that? Where I'm going, I can't remember.
I can barely remember it either, and we wrote it.
Yeah. I'm like, I think it's Countdown. Yeah, I loved being evil Sarah because it is like being able to play an evil version of a character that you already do is so fun.
I'm sure.
Oh my God! Hi, Beanie.
She was crying, so I had to bring her into the frame to give you an understanding of what the noise was. She just like comes over for attention. So it was cool to play an evil version of the character you're used to playing.
So fun. And then I also liked all the meta stuff that would happen, like especially game reviews. Game reviews that that Gill would write typically would have some sort of, if it was a game that we would talk about together, they would typically have like pieces of conversations that we'd had inserted in the game. And so I always talk about Pikmin 3 as one of my favorite game reviews, because that was my first time recognizing that Gil was like taking pieces of conversations that we'd had and like putting it into a game review. And I'm like, oh, that's how I play. Like I try to play it as perfect Pikmin day. Yeah. So I think that's one of my favorites just because memories.
That's the process. Just take a conversation and then put Tom in front of one of the lines and Sarah in front of the other ones and
pretty much
wrap it up.
Yeah, and Dennis has like a whole other rogue way of doing it, where I'm like, I don't know what the conversation is.
Remember it's been a long time since we played one of these.
About to fire it up, dude.
I thought it was time to get to it.
So I had to do it. Yeah, and I really enjoy the game reviews where Sarah isn't judging or where it's not like, well, now Tom, like it's just like, oh, that's not how I would play it. Like I think it's more like understanding that these are both characters that enjoy gaming and they just do it differently, which is sometimes I've noticed is the way that you two play. Gil would play it this way and Jason would play it this way. And this is one person is Gil and one person is Jason. Yeah,
the person who plays it better is me, just for clarity's sake.
Wonderful.
Just to make it clear. Well, I think we're about out of time, so I think before we go, is there, I would say, is there anything you would like to see? This is not in any way to say that we will be able to make this happen, but what would you like to see happen for Sarah as the person who embodies Sarah in real life? What would you like to see with her character?
Wow.
If you even have a thought,
Yeah, I like the fact that she's a projection, but I always think that any sort of like corporeal evolution is always nice. Like the thing where Tom gets to kind of like go off the ship and roam around and like explore. Yeah. I think I would love for that same lack of limitation on Sarah is something. And also, before we go, I did want to share. I brought this out to share. It is my acting award from high school.
Is that best senior and overall actress? Is that a dual award?
Yeah, it's a dual award.
Congratulations.
So this is, anybody who has this award also sitting in your home, I hope that you...
I can't quite read it, but it appears that there's an inspirational quote at the top. Could you read that for us?
Oh yeah, sure. It is, let me get it out of the water. Hold on. It is, I'm trying to get this frame right. Act well your part. Therein the honor lies. Thespis.
Nice.
Oh man, I can't even get it. It like
Yoda.
Golden words,
away.
Thespis. Golden words from
Thespis. I realized I pulled that down as a joke for this, and I was like, I gotta pull out my joke, you guys.
Thespis just wrote, "Play your fucking part, punk," and they were like, "Yes, that's the quote we're gonna use."
Okay, and that is whenever I talk to people who are like, oh, I want to act, I want to get into acting, and I'm like, sometimes the best way to do it is you take the smallest thing, the tiniest thing, and you make it your own, and you do it to the best of your ability. And that is honestly like how I feel like that's a lot of my success has come from that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, we look forward to working with you for another however many years we are allowed to all make Toonami together.
Woo!
And hopefully you will have received your Thespis quote Toonami award in the mail by now, but if not, it should be any day now.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what material this is because it feels like wood and then it's painted.
Yeah,
it's probably like plasticine of some kind or like a particle board. Like
I don't know. It's super weird.
If you want to follow Dana on Twitter, it's at Dana Swanson. Is that your?
No, I am at Dana Swan.
Oh, right.
She rebranded.
Yeah, I rebranded. I'm at Dana Swan.
We'll lower third that.
Yeah, on both Instagram and Twitter.
Okay.
And actually, I would like to thank Adult Swim's social media department for helping me rebrand.
Nice.
As a joke.
Swan.
I was looking for a new handle, but yes, I rebranded.
So follow Dana at Dana Swan. You can follow Gill at Stupid Gill. You can follow me at Clark Nova 1, and tell her if you like her work.
And if you don't
tell her I don't.
I hope you get one of these.
Yeah.
If you have one of these, then you can tell me whatever.
All right. Thanks, Dana. Thanks for coming.
Bye. Great seeing you.
Bye.